And we are back. Hey, I am Emily Leach, founder of the Freelance Business Week. I'm so excited to have you back. And I'm super excited and honored to be able to let you guys know about Julie Cortez. You've seen her a little bit. She was on this morning. She was on a panel yesterday, the ProX. She was the person that ran that panel. And oops, I turned off my sound. If you don't know that much about Julie, she really is just an overall amazing human. She is the founder of the Freelance Exchange out of Kansas City. They started up about 18 years ago. She's freelanced for almost as long as I have, and there's not a whole lot of us out there. So she definitely knows and has a really great footing in freelance. And I would believe and go with anything that she has to say and teach you on how to run a great freelance business. So let's go ahead and bring her up on the screen. Say hi real quick. Hey, Julie.
Hey there. Thanks for having me.
I just gave everybody a quick overview of who you are, reminded people that you were on the ProAct yesterday, that you did the coin toss this morning.
Yes.
And you're also the organizer of Freelance Business Week, Kansas City. So we are very honored to have you. And I'm going to step down, let you have the floor and do your thing.
Very good. Thanks so much, Emily. Well, let's get my slide up here. Here we go. And perfect. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Today we are going to talk about how to rock your solo biz or business, if you want to be official here. So let's talk about when people first think about starting a freelance business. They think about the legal aspects, the accounting stuff. They think about paperwork. Okay, what do I have to do for an estimate, an invoice, a contract, all that kind of stuff that they need to put together. They even think about branding and self-promotion and marketing, all of that kind of stuff. But one very crucial element of freelancing that's often overlooked or often neglected is mindset. The mindset part of it is so important, and it literally can make or break your business. This is the part that gives you the confidence to do what's best for you. Because I don't know why, but for some odd reason, there are people out there who like to take advantage of freelancers or the self-employed, like the client who expects you to be available 24/7 and answer to their beck and call, right? Or the one who keeps adding to the project. Hello, scope creep. What about the client who doesn't pay on time, or the one who doesn't pay at all? Like, I keep asking myself, why do people do this? That's really what I want to know. Why? Is it because they know that they can? Because they know that they've gotten away with it before? Do they think we as freelancers are desperate for work? Or maybe it's because they think that we don't know what we're doing, just simply because we're self-employed. Friends, I'm here to tell you, it is up to you to prove them wrong. It is up to you to stop this behavior in its tracks. And it's up to you to shift your mindset and remind them who's boss. You are the boss of your own business. And setting your beliefs, your policies, and standards as a freelancer will help you stay in charge of your business and bounce back even quicker if and when things get tough. Hi, I'm Julie Cortez, copywriter by day, freelance rockstar by night. I have run my own freelance business for 23 years now and have absolutely loved every minute of it, even the ups and downs, the pros and cons that come with the territory. Early in my career, I noticed that there was this void for freelancers, though. This void in education, in community, and even respect. And so I kind of made it my life's personal mission to rectify that, looking back on things. In 2003, I created an organization called the Freelance Exchange of Kansas City. We cater to those who are self-employed in advertising and marketing, offering them education, mentorship, promotional opportunities, social opportunities, networking, what have you. And then since then, it's become just this amazing resource for local businesses, whether it's ad agencies, large corporations, small businesses, or design shops. Anybody and everybody can use this free and easy to use resource that we offer the community to help them find the talent that they need. And then just kind of my life path has had all sorts of twists and turns along the way. I like to call them plot twists. And I'm just kind of along for the ride. And so apparently when you're the founder of an organization, you get presented all these opportunities. Like you get all these media interviews. You get people wanting you to come in to talk to their classes and to their organizations. And I'll tell you, one of these universities I was speaking at, one of their advertising classes, it dawned on me and I was like, oh, this stuff needs to be taught in schools. Why is this not taught in schools? And long story short, I ended up creating my own Freelancing 101 class, and I now teach at the world-renowned Kansas City Art Institute. And I love it so much. I love giving back to the community, and I love being able to help these young artists run their own freelance businesses, because nobody taught me how to do this, and I had to learn it along the way. So hopefully I am helping them out. And then another funny thing happened. So many of my professional freelancer cohorts were like, Julie, that class sounds amazing. I really should come sit in on it. And I was like, well, there's no room. And of course, you kind of have to enroll and pay and go back to school. And nobody at this stage really wants to do that, right? So hello, Cortez, light bulb moment. Why don't you open up a coaching arm to your business and offer these same lessons, these same tips and tricks to your fellow freelancers? So I've been doing that for the past couple of years. I've been making my way around on different stages, both local and national. Oh, and I just did some international ones, although virtual, but they still count, stages talking about all things freelancing. So really excited about my journey. And I want to impart everything that I have shared within those 23 years with you today. So as promised, today we are going to talk about how to establish boundaries, how to gain the confidence that you need in order to get the respect that you deserve. And my hope is that today you will walk away with a newfound mindset that will help you rock your freelance business. So let's start off by setting the scene here and talk about a variety of different scenarios that could happen and like what to look for, things that could potentially spell trouble, right? Things like red flags, such as what if you have a new potential client who won't sign a contract? Or maybe they want you to go ahead and start before it's signed. Like this holds true too for, I don't care how close you are with the person, whether it's friend or family or a good acquaintance, like this is business. You get that contract signed. What if they won't pay you a deposit up front? Well, I would say, find out why, but at least get that contract signed ahead of time before moving forward. Such huge red flags right there. And I'll tell you what, this happened to me a few years back. I was referred by one of my favorite clients, a design shop, and they said, Julie, we're doing this website for this company. We want you to be the copywriter. But you know what? We don't want to deal with the we don't want to be the middleman. So you just work directly with them. Okay, sure. No problem. And so that I emailed the gal and I said, hey, I got your name from so-and-so and just want to tell you a little bit about myself and get some information from you so we can move forward. And she's like, yeah, okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself and how you work. So I go back, I tell her everything, tell her who I am, my history, how long I've been doing this for whom, right? And then I say, and by what, my process starts with, we have a discovery call. Then I give you an estimate. If the estimate is approved, we move forward with a contract and deposit. Ooh, she did not like those words. Like the clause came out. And of course, I'm like, why? And she was like, well, you had me until this. I've worked with scores of freelancers before, and I have never been asked for such a thing. And I was like, not my problem. Those people obviously don't know what they're doing, right? They don't know what they're talking about. But of course, here, my eyebrows are raised. The red flags are like, ding, 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 like, warning, do not move forward. And quite honestly, it wasn't that big of a project. Like it wasn't thousands of dollars. And I was like, okay, well, I'll tell you what, this doesn't sound like it's going to be a good fit for me. So I'd like to offer a recommendation. You can go elsewhere and find a freelancer, and good luck to you. So just kind of be on the lookout for certain things. At the end of the day, it's just not worth it. You have to watch for things such as a client's personality. And you can usually get a good feel for this up front in your first meeting or first phone call with them. Do they have demanding, rude, or even indecisive behavior? Do they have a bad attitude? Is their behavior poor? Listen to see how they talk about freelancers in general. Are they demeaning of the workforce as a whole? If they belittle you or the profession, if they have a lack of respect for freelancers, some key things that you might consider listening for, like, oh, this should only take you a couple of hours, or, oh, this should be really easy for you. And you're like, no, like that logo you want me to design, it's not just, putting a pretty picture together. Like there's a lot of thought that goes into that process. There's a lot of concepts. There's a lot of research. There's color theory, yada, yada, yada. I'm speaking to the choir. You guys know there's so much more to the process. So look for these things. Look for signs that maybe your client is high maintenance. Like, do they want updates every single day? Do they want to micromanage your time? Hello, we're freelancers. That's not why we do this. Do they want itemized invoices, like detailed down to the exact minutes that you worked? That's a bit much. What if they want to pick your brain before the contract is signed? Like, I'm all for having a discovery call and sharing ideas, but not giving away those tried and true secrets until that's signed on the dotted line. All right. I saw something on Instagram the other day, and I just love this quote so much. So feel free to steal it. But it says, you can pick my brain after you pick your payment method. And I was like, yes, I love that. I love that. Look too and notice if this potential client seems like they're desperate to hire. Like, and why is that? Are they just bad with time management? Did they hire another freelancer before you and it didn't work out? And if so, why was that? This gal that I was working for, the story I told you before, how she wouldn't sign the deposit, she wouldn't sign the contract, she wouldn't give me a deposit, which is bizarre because she did so with a design company, but not with the freelancer. She said, I've worked with scores of other freelancers before, and I've never been, or scores of other contractors before, and I've never been asked this before. Okay, so that should have been another red flag for me. Why has she worked with so many people before? Maybe it's not the freelancers who are the problem. Maybe it's her. Yeah, 100%. Another thing you want to look for when it comes to red flags is time. When they come to you, is there really enough time to do the project? Is the timeline reasonable? Is it urgent? Does it need to be done yesterday, or so they say? Do they ask to skip the contract or deposit because they're in a hurry? Do they ask to participate in multiple meetings or calls before the contract is signed? That's a huge red flag as well. Again, my personal policy is I give 1 hour and that's it. And then otherwise we're on the clock. Okay. And we'll get into building your policies, creating your policies later, but just start listening for these cues when you're talking to your customers or your potential clients. Are they disrespectful of your boundaries? Like, for example, do they expect you to work on a project or take a call after hours? Like, do they want you to be working through the weekend? Do they expect you to take a call at 10 o'clock at night? Like, no, right? Something else to look for is communications. Like, if they don't communicate with you, like if they ghost you, or if they take a long time to respond, like what's going on? Are they really busy, or are they just not that committed into this project? What if they won't talk about the company that they're working with? That's kind of a red flag. What if they want to pay you under the table? That's another red flag. Okay, start listening for these details. What if they don't know what they want? Now, this one's pretty common. I got to admit, there are some people who like just have the best intentions and they don't know what they want. And it's our job to kind of, direct them to get them to, getting a great end result. But at the end of the day, if they are just so wishy-washy and you just know you're never going to be able to please them because they can't make a decision, that might be a sign that it's time to walk away. So keep that in mind. What about people who tell you their life story up front? Like, I had one guy, I just met him. I met him before, and then we were having our discovery meeting at a coffee shop. And I go in and I sit down, and he's like, oh, I'm so upset. Oh, okay, what's going on? I'm trying to be nice, right? And he says, oh, I just got off the phone with my son. I'm so mad. I am not letting him get married. And I was like, wait, what? Why won't you let him get married? He's like, because his fiance refuses to take the family name as her last name. And I was like, ooh, all, oh, like, yeah, what do I do with this information? First of all, way too much information. Second of all, hello, red flag. You are super controlling and you're going to be difficult to work with. And I was right. In the end, he absolutely was. It was hard getting payment from him. And I bid him adieu. So listen for these details. If they're shaky on the details, like, again, maybe they don't know what it is that they want, or maybe they're just trying to get you to guide them along the way. Just kind of figure out what's going on here. Something else that I find kind of sketchy is if a client doesn't allow you to show the finished piece in your portfolio. Now, some companies, I understand, like you're kind of being a ghostwriter or ghost designer or what have you. I understand that, and if they tell you that up front, that's one thing. But for the most part, I think people are pretty understanding, especially if you give them credit. Hey, I worked on this project with XYZ agency, for, whatever client, if you give them credit, most people are usually okay with it. Now, if they're not, again, find out why. But that's something to kind of consider too. If they're just like, absolutely not, well, do you really want to continue working with them? Because you've got to make a living too. And if you're really proud of that project, you're going to want to show it in your portfolio so you can get more business down the road, right? Right. Okay, and then the last thing that I want to talk about when it comes to red flags is money. Like if they don't want to talk about price or fees or your deposit up front, that's a problem. If they want stuff for free, or if they want you to work for exposure or on spec, don't do it. Just, it's one of those things, they probably mean well, but they don't understand. That totally devalues our profession. Would they go to their accountant or their attorney and ask them to do things on spec or for exposure? No, absolutely not. The same holds true for you. Okay, we are service providers, and there's nothing different between us and accountants and attorneys, except for the industry that we work in. If they ask for a discount, like if they guarantee you more work later or more work now, like to me, this has become a huge red flag. I can't tell you how many times people will say, Julie, block off your schedule. We've got 30 hours a week, guaranteed work for you coming for the next 3 weeks. And you're like, great, that sounds awesome. I would love to boost up my bank account. And they're like, no, we're going to give you this guaranteed work. So we want a discounted rate. Are you willing to do it for this price? And it's like, I would like the money, but do I really want to discount my work? Well, I have found in my experience, 23 years, that more often than not, 9 times out of 10, like they don't have that much work. Either that or I'm super fast, but they don't have that much work. And so then you're like, well, then do I still bill for the full 30 hours? And they're like, no, you only bill for the time you work on the project. No. Like, get it in writing. If you don't hit that guaranteed number that they promised you, then you're going to go back and charge your regular rate. I kind of feel like this may be, something sketchy that people are trying to pull over on us. So just anything that you agree to, and I'm not saying don't, but anything that you agree to like that, get it in writing. Make sure they understand what your policies are on things like this. Remember, you are the boss of your own business. You get to dictate how this works. If they don't like it, they can go find another freelancer and you can go find another client. All right. So keep that in mind, especially if they try to negotiate on price. Now, again, there are different scenarios and some things are going to be okay and some things aren't. So, know what to look for. Know if it's, if it's something like, hey, we want you on site every week going forward for 6 months or whatever. Okay, that's pretty much common. I would say most on-site gigs ask you to discount your rate, but you have guaranteed work coming in the door. You don't have to get out there and hustle and look for the next project. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. If it is a brand new client whom you've never met before, you don't know anything about them except for maybe they're a mom and pop shop or they're a startup company, then again, that might be a huge red flag. And again, it's up to you if you want to help them out and negotiate on price, or if you want to refer them to maybe somebody who's fresher out the gate who doesn't charge as much, right? So now that you know what to look for with these red flags and these potentially difficult clients, the question becomes, how do you deal with them? My number one tip for this is to train yourself. Get educated, folks. I cannot stress this enough. Like, So many of us went to school to study our craft, whether that be writing, design, photography, what have you, and we didn't take business classes, either because they weren't required or we didn't think we would ever need them. And then lo and behold, whether by choice or by default, we get out on our own and we have to run a business. It's one of those things, like, you really don't know what you don't know. You may be the most talented, award-winning person out there in your field, in your industry. But if you don't know how to run a business, you're not going to get ahead. And people are going to walk all over you because they know that they can. Okay, so get educated. You want to get educated on standard business practices, on national industry standards, on legal issues, or even what your legal rights are. And there's a variety of ways where you can get this education, whether you take a class or read books or join a professional organization. Maybe you attend webinars, you read blogs, you attend conferences, you hire a coach. You get to your local small business resources. Like maybe in your city, there's locally, there's a SourceLink or a SCORE mentors, or maybe something like a small business administration. Now, on the national level, I know there's some excellent resources out there. Of course, Freelancers Union has some great resources on their website, as does AIGA, the national site, if you're a graphic artist. But even myself as a writer, I found some great information there, as well as the Graphic Artists Guild. Some amazing, amazing tools there. Again, I'm not a designer, and I know many of you are not a graphic artist either. So just trust me on this one. There's some great info there, and I don't want you to miss out. So Freelancers Union, AIGA, Graphic Artists Guild. Okay, I think those are really going to help you. But going forward, once you have learned all of these things and you've kind of armed yourself with this knowledge, it is important that you establish your business rules, such as using contracts. My personal policy is that I have a contract written up for every new client or every large project. Now, what does large project mean to you? Is that $500, $5,000, $50,000, what have you? Again, you get to create these policies. Okay. What about requesting a deposit up front? That's industry standard, 100%. Again, my personal policy is with all new clients and all large projects. Now, you can do 50% upfront, as many people do. That is totally standard. Or some people do what's called milestone billing. So for instance, they may do a third upfront when they sign the contract, a third when the concept is approved, and then a third when the project is complete. Totally up to you how you want to do that. So, I've even heard of people who charge 100% upfront. If you can get that, more power to you. That would be amazing. And please share with me your secrets on how you do that. But just so you know, all of these things are standard, and you get to decide how you want to run things. Okay, this is your business. Additionally, you want to talk about or think about setting up your own payment terms. When we think of billing our clients, it is kind of, especially if you're brand new, it is like, okay, here's my invoice. Like, I'm pushing it across the table, but of course it's done through email now. Here's my invoice. Well, industry standards dictate, it's generally a 30-day turnaround for those to be paid. Now, some freelancers have like a 15-day turnaround or maybe a 45-day turnaround. Again, totally up to you. You get to call the shots on this. This is your business. You create the rules on that. Okay. I've even known some freelancers who are like, hey, client, if you pay early, like within the next 10 business days, I'll give you 10% off your invoice. Great. Okay. If that's what works for you, if you want to get paid faster, that's perfect. Go do that. So you get to create all of these things, whether it's contracts, deposits, setting payment terms, but also keep in mind, more of the non-tangible things. Like, you want to be able to maintain a work-life balance. So perhaps you set office hours for yourself, whether it be 8 to 5, 9 to 5, noon to 6, I don't care, whatever it is. I'm not here to judge, and whatever works for you and your schedule. But you set office hours for yourself, train yourself, and then when you will be working, right, between those office hours. Now, I'm not going to say we don't often, oh, I'm behind on a project. I got to make up for it tonight or over the weekend. That's fine. Don't tell your client you're working them, but that's fine. I understand that. But if a client comes to you and says, hey, Julie, it's 5 o'clock on a Friday and we need this by 8 a.m. Monday. Can you knock this out for you? Well, I can. So it's up to me if I say yes or no, right? I get to make that decision. And if I do say yes, what is my policy on top of that? Do I just charge my regular rate or do I charge a rush fee? We'll talk about rush fees in a minute, but there are things that you can do because that is an invasion of your personal life. And as freelancers, because so many of us work from home or work for ourselves, like we have to maintain our mental health, our emotional health. We have to save our own sanity. And so that's why it's really important to have this distinction between our work time and our personal time. We've got to allow for ourselves to take breaks and to take vacations. You have to be in the right mindset to run your business. You have to treat your business like a business, not like a hobby. Okay. And one of the ways to do this is to establish policies. For example, like the office hours I just talked about. When are you going to work? When are you going to be available for your client? Say if they want to do a Zoom meeting or a call or once we get back to normal, meet in person. What if your client wants to text you all the time? Maybe you implement like a no texting policy and be like, you know what, let's keep business stuff to email and phone calls or Zoom calls. And let's not do the texting because really that can get out of hand. Messages can get lost. So let's have everything in like one cohesive spot. Or maybe you even use like Slack or something, Asana, a platform where you're communicating and you can keep all the messages there and keep them all nice and neat. Wouldn't that be great? That would be great. Establish these policies such as payment terms. Establish if you're going to have a 30-day turnaround or less or more. Like, again, establish something. Establish what you're going to charge. And I'm not just talking like hourly rate or project rate, though that is something you want to consider. But what about additional fees? Like, did you know that you can charge a late fee? Like you are legally entitled to charge 1.5% every 30 days. Now, I know that's not a lot of money, but it's the principle of it. If we don't want people taking advantage of us, if we don't want people paying late, then they get some sort of penalty, right? It's no different than like, if a client's utility bill was coming due or Visa bill was coming due, like they have 30 days or whatever it is, turnaround. It's the same concept. And they charge penalties if you don't pay on time. The same concept. So not all clients will pay your late fee, and that's fine. But you don't have to go back and work with them again. All right. I still remember to this day, one client said, well, I don't like your late fees. And I'm like, well, here's a solution. Don't be late. Right? Not that difficult. Like, get it together. It's not my fault if you can't get this paid in 30 days. I feel like that's totally plenty of time to get your financial stuff in order. And again, I'm a copywriter. I'm not charging oodles and oodles and oodles of money here. My invoices are not that big for the most part. And so I have a lot of projects to keep me going. So we talked about rush fees earlier. So rush fees could be time and a half. It could be double the project estimate, depending on how you charge, if you're hourly or if you charge by the project. My personal policy when it comes to rush fee is that if somebody comes to me and they want something the same day, overnight, over a weekend, or over a holiday, then I'm going to be charging my rush fee. Again, whether time and a half or double the amount of the project estimate. It's just kind of one of those things like, if you're asking me to drop what I'm doing and cater to you right then and there, or move you up in the queue of all these other projects that I have on tap, then you're going to be charged for it. So keep that in mind. Something else is a cancellation fee. What happens if the project gets killed or canceled in the middle of, you working on it, and most likely not because of your fault. Maybe there was a disagreement in upper level management. Maybe they just couldn't decide on something. So more often than not, your deposit will cover that if it is killed or canceled early on. But you want to be able to keep that deposit and have it be non-refundable so you are covered for the time that you set aside to work on that project, because otherwise you'd be working on other projects and gaining money from other people. And then the other thing is, and don't put my name next to this, but so many people do it, is what I like to call the PITA fee, like the bread, right? PITA. It's pain in the ass, right? Or an aggravation fee, like for those clients who just are literally pain in the asses, and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, did that take me an extra hour to do that project, but I still came in under budget? Sorry, not sorry. Right? Like this happens. This is part of my policy. You might consider making it one of yours. I see a comment coming in. Let me check this out real quick. I always say I'm in the office with clients during work hours, even though they may already know that I work from home. It's a good mindset to have generally for self-discipline. Absolutely. 100%. I one time had somebody call me. He tried calling me at 10 o'clock at night because he knew I worked from home. And he tried faxing me at like 5 o'clock in the morning. This tells you how long ago this was. But this was, before I was married, and I had a small apartment. My office was in my bedroom, which means my fax machine was not far from my head. And he's faxing me at 5 o'clock in the morning. And this girl ain't no morning person. I was like, what is going on? So I had to establish some boundaries, like super quick. I changed my voicemail to say what my office hours were and that I would return phone calls, within those hours. Like, we had to have a little conversation because that just was not acceptable. Of course, I wasn't going to answer the phone at 10 o'clock at night. Now, if it were an emergency, if it were something that were my fault, if I had a really, really good relationship, long-term relationship with this client, I might consider differently. But I didn't. He was brand new. He was taking advantage of me. All right. So you definitely have to put boundaries in place. And you've got to get in the mindset to just know that it's okay. So we've mentioned all of these red flags, but you've got to determine what you're going to do if a client does any of these things, or a potential client does any of these things, such as if they don't sign your estimate or contract, or if they don't pay you a deposit up front. Those seem to be the two biggest red flags going into things. Plus, you may run into different situations down the road after the contract's signed, after you got your deposit. Like maybe you need to get a whole bunch of necessary information before you can move forward to do your portion of the project. But they don't give you the information in time. They don't give you the materials in time that you need in order to meet the deadline. This happened to me. Well, it's happened to me on a couple of occasions, but I've learned now like how to be proactive about it. But this one time, I tell you what, this client I was working for, and a fellow freelance designer had brought me in on this project. And we go to the discovery meeting, we get all the information. The guy signs my estimate. I get the contract signed. I get my deposit. Everything's good. Long story short, we were working on a presentation for this company that they were going to have to present like 2 weeks from then. And I said, great, give me all the information and we'll be good to go. Guess when he got me the information? I'm not even kidding. It was the night before he was supposed to be presenting. I'm like, what? Now, of course, I don't typically respond to emails or phone calls or what have you, after hours, but I just happened to be checking my phone and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I just kind of thought, this fell off his radar. I already got my deposit, so I'm good, right? But no, he expected me to drop what I was doing, work, burn the midnight oil, work all hours of the night to get this ready for him for his 8 o'clock presentation the next day. This came in at like 6:30 in the evening. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, of course, I just wanted to walk away. But I was like, okay, he's in a bind. I'm going to be professional about this. I'm going to help him out. And I said, hey, I'm so glad you finally got the information over to me. It looks like I've got my work cut out for me this evening. But just an FYI, now this has become a rush project and therefore my rush fees now go into effect. Well, he did not like that. And I'm like, what part of this don't you understand? But what's that old adage, the lack of preparation on your behalf does not constitute an emergency on mine? But he wanted me to make it my emergency and he didn't want to pay extra fees. So I was like, all right, well, I'm happy to walk away and leave you to it. You can handle it on your own. No. We'll pay the rush fees. And I'm like, yeah, you will. So it was just one of those things. Like I held my ground. Oh, I forgot to tell y'all, not only was it evening and it was the night before, it was also a holiday. I was with my family when I got that email and I was like, what do you want me to do about this right this minute? Right. So I mean, this goes against all of my policies, same day, overnight, over a weekend, kind of thing. So he definitely paid the rush fees, but we did not work together again. And that was my decision. So just start listening for different things and be proactive. Have in mind how you're going to handle these things. So think to yourself, what will you do if somebody does that to you? What will you do if somebody keeps adding all sorts of things to the project? Remember that scope creep that we talked about early on? What if you only allow for 2 or 3 rounds of revisions, which is noted in your estimate or in your contract, but now they want additional. Now they want 9 or 10 rounds of revisions. Okay, that's fine, but obviously you're going to have to give them a revised estimate or bill hourly, whatever you want to do with that. They don't get all of that for that same price. What will you do if somebody calls you or texts you or tries to schedule a meeting after hours? What will you do if they ask you to work overnight, over a weekend, over a holiday? Like, will you take the project? Or if you do, it's again, it's okay to walk away. But if you do take the project, will you charge a rush fee? I highly recommend that you do. What will you do if a client ghosts you? Like if they stop communicating altogether, how will you handle that? Like, do you have a process in place with how many times will you email them being like, hello, I'm right here. Did you forget about me? Before you call them or show up at their doorstep or whatever it is that you need to do. What is your process? Okay, to do that. What if a client is late in paying you? What is your policy to handle that? Do you add in a 1.5% late fee every 30 days? Or do you not? Do you just simply follow up with a late invoice that says, hey, I'm sure this just slipped your mind or got lost in your email. Just wanted to remind you this is now past due. It may totally depend on the relationship with the client. Do you have a good long-term relationship with them? Or is it somebody brand new? Is it somebody who's been a pain in the ass along the way, right? So you've got to decide how you're going to handle these things, because if it hasn't happened to you before, count yourself lucky, because these stories and these issues are very, very common, unfortunately, in the freelance workforce. And then, of course, not only what if a client's late, but what if they end up not paying you at all? Then what do you do? Do you turn it over to collections? Do you go to small claims court? Do you get an attorney involved and have them write up a little nastygram? Figure out what your process is going forward, what your policies are, what you will and won't stand for. Okay, this is how you train yourself. Now that you are trained, guess who's next? You've got to train your clients, of course. So remember those office hours that you set for yourself, you've got to share those with your client. Let them know when it's appropriate to contact you or to expect a response from you or when you'll be working. So very important. If you are going to be charging rush fees, let them know what that is. Maybe you put it in your contract. Okay. Your payment terms. Like I said, I would say most common industry standard is a 30-day turnaround for when invoices are due. Now, there are some companies, and I'll tell you, ad agencies are the worst at this, but there are some companies who are like, no, we're going to pay you when we get paid by our clients. And you're like, no, this happened to me. I kid you not. So first of all, let me tell you about this company. I had first worked for them many, many, many years ago when I first started my freelance business. So we're talking probably 20 years ago. And I was working on a project and it got killed for whatever reason. I didn't do anything wrong, but I still wanted to get paid for my time, right? Past what the deposit covered. So I went ahead and invoiced them. That my contact was like, okay, cool, I'll send this along to accounting. And I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm not getting paid. And I'm, trying to get in touch with my contact. He doesn't know what's going on. So of course, then I go and knock on the accounting department's door, through an email. I'm not literally there. But I'm knocking on their door and I'm like, hello, I'd like to get paid. Y'all, this was $125. It wasn't a lot of money to them, but to me at the time, it really was. I needed that to pay my bills. And again, I got that old, we don't pay our vendors until we get paid by our clients. And I was like, that's bullshit. Like, sorry, give me my money. I did. I got my $125 after 4 months, but I vowed to myself, I was like, this company obviously doesn't value their vendors. They don't treat their freelancers with respect. I'm not going to be wanting to work for them again, which is unfortunate because they do great work. They're one of the top ad agencies here in Kansas City to this day. But they really, really just rubbed me the wrong way. And so, funny story, here we are all these years later, and this probably was 2 years ago now. They came back to me, new people, right? And this young account executive comes to me via email. She's like, Julie, we have this project. We want you to work on it. Can you set some time aside for us to do so? Yes, happy to do so. Tell me a little bit about it, and I'll give you an estimate. So we go through that whole process. She gives me her, the spiel, and I go back and I type up my estimate and I send it over to her. And she replies, she says, great, this looks great. We'll be in touch. Okay, so first red flag, she didn't sign my estimate. Now, I know well enough, I've talked to my attorney enough to know that as long as they approve it in my in an email and it's in writing, then I'm good to go there. So I said, I'm trying to read comments at the same time. Sorry, I got to focus on my story. I'll get to you in a minute. But I said, well, okay, great. Well, I'm not done yet with the onboarding process. So let me send over my contract and my request for deposit. So I type all that up. I send it over and she comes back to me. And again, it was via email, but in my mind, I'm hearing it. No, we don't pay freelancer deposits and we don't sign freelancer contracts. She goes, instead, we have freelancers sign our contract. Is that okay? What do you mean, is that okay? And I'm like, okay, red flag, red flag, red flag. All right. Well, I told her, I said, listen, I haven't seen your contract. I'm not saying I'm going to sign it one way or another until I read it. My dad was an attorney. He taught me well. So anyway, so she sends over their contract. I'm looking through it. It's 6 pages long. And quite honestly, most of it is just general stuff, generic stuff. Who owns the work? I'm classified as a contractor, not as an employee. Yeah, yada, yada. Okay, fine. But there's one line in there, just one line that was hidden in there that essentially says, we, the agency, will not be paying you, the contractor, until 30 days after we get paid by our client. And I'm like, no. Again, is that what you tell your Visa bill or your utility bill company when it comes due? Oh, sorry, we haven't been paid by our client yet, so you're not going to get paid. Oh, of course not. Of course not. They pay those bills. So why aren't they paying ours? So I sent my contract straight over to my attorney. And I was like, hey, I want to make sure that I'm not crazy here. Please tell me that this is a huge red flag. And he's like, yes, Julie, absolutely. Huge red flag. Do not sign this contract as is. Instead, you have the power to go back and say, as part of my negotiations, because all contracts are negotiable. Don't let anybody tell you differently. He says, as part of my negotiations, I'm going to ask that you change out this one line to say that you're going to pay me within 30 days of receiving my invoice instead of the verbiage that you have here. And the guy's like, okay, no problem. No problem. What do you mean by that? Why are you trying to take advantage of freelancers day in and day out? I don't get it. Like, I was pissed. I'm like, I need to talk to somebody in your accounting department or whoever's in charge of this policy. And of course, I never got those names as I asked for them. But clients will try to take advantage of you. And you need to learn how to take control of your freelance business to prevent overwhelm for yourself, for your sanity. You need to learn how to stand up for yourself. Learn how to say no. You've got to set boundaries and stick to them as life goes on. Now, with this story, I did end up getting paid within 30 days. In fact, I got paid immediately. Like, I think I got that check within 10 days. It was amazing. And I was like, why is this even a thing? Because they know they can get away with it. They know there are freelancers out there who are desperate for work, desperate for money, desperate to work with big name companies just so they can have that bullet point on their resume. But you don't have to be one of them at all. I want you to establish these clear expectations when it comes to deadlines and responses and revisions. Set fees, whether it's rush fees or late fees or kill fees, what have you. And remember that just because you work for yourself or you work from home doesn't mean that you're available 24/7. You get to dictate when you work, not them. Okay, now let me get to your comment here in the chat. I used to have partners who responded to client emails after hours, as late as 11 o'clock or later. It drove me crazy. I always reply to after hours, non-emergency calls or emails first thing in the morning. That seems to be a quick way to train clients. That is excellent advice, whoever that is out there. 100%. Yeah, train them. You may receive the emails. That doesn't mean you have to reply. Or maybe you are up late the night before working on something. You can schedule emails to go at 8 o'clock the next morning. You don't have to send them out immediately. Somebody else says, I always say I'm in the office. I think I said this before, with clients during work hours, even though they may already know that I work from home. Yeah, I did say this. Very good. Okay, so we're caught up. Okay, so moving forward, here's what I want to happen. All right. You've got to act like a business. If you want to be treated like a business, you have to act like one. That means having these difficult conversations, discussing the hard things up front, the pricing, the fees, the non-payment issues, and what would happen if they're late in paying or don't pay at all. Try and have these conversations, whether it's in person, over Zoom, over phone, through an email. I know it's difficult, but I'll tell you what, the more you do it, the easier it gets. You may even consider, I've seen some people have crafted a working with me document or a what to expect document that you can share with your clients. You could just send it over in an email. You can include it when you send over the contract. You could have it posted on your website. Like maybe it's a sub navigation page on your website. But excellent way to get those policies across and just kind of say, yes, this is how I work. If you don't like it, go find somebody else. It's not like you're really being a hard ass, quite honestly. I mean, it's just, you have rules, just like any other business has rules or has policies, okay? So here's what they are, and we're going to stick to them. I will tell you to trust your gut. 9 times out of 10, if it feels wrong, it probably is. Let me up that. Let's say it's like 95%, 97% of the time. If it feels wrong, it probably is. If your gut is telling you, man, something's sketchy here, listen to it. I don't care how desperate you are for money, how much you're needing business right now. It's not going to be worth it in the end. All right. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you've got to know when to walk away. Every situation is going to be different, of course. Right? So for example, if somebody says, I can't sign your contract, I can't give you a deposit, ask why. Figure out why that is. Is it because your contact here works at a large corporation and, instead of signing freelancer agreements, instead they have a contract coming over from themselves? Again, that could be totally cool. You read every line of that, though, I'm warning you, and make sure that it's a win-win situation for both parties. However, if they won't do either of those things, and let's say they are a startup company or a very small business, you may want to reconsider. That might be a red flag for you. Like if a startup company isn't willing to pay your deposit, are they going to have the money at the end to pay you when it's all said and done? Okay, so listen for these clues and know how you're going to react moving forward. And again, there's nothing wrong with asking questions. If there's a problem with cash flow, you may even consider implementing like a payment strategy, right? Hey, you don't have to pay 50% up front. Let's do things in quarterly chunks instead. 25% here, 25% there, just to kind of keep it easy for both of us. See if you can work with them and find a win-win situation. If things come to a head, try to implement these conflict resolution tactics. Like really get in there and try and understand the emotion. Again, why is this happening? And let's say this is further on down the road when you're, in the middle of a project, and let's just say maybe the client isn't happy, do take responsibility for anything that was your fault. 100% own up to that. But remember to remain calm as much as possible. You want to see if you can find a win-win solution for both parties. So both people are happy, both sides are happy. And again, if you can do this in person or Zoom, I would say would be next, especially pandemic times, but you want to be able to see the other person. It's really hard to be mean to somebody or for your client to be mean to somebody when they can see you. Okay, if you can't be in person or on Zoom, then phone is best, or phone would be next. But really try not to do this over email. People can be keyboard warriors, and you want to make sure to keep that emotion out of it. But at the end of the day, just remember that you can fire a client. And I gotta tell you, as a freelancer, that's so freaking empowering. I love that aspect of it. Like, oh, you're being a pain in the ass, bye-bye, right? If they're being rude or disrespectful, get out of that relationship. It's no different than a personal relationship, only it's business. But if somebody's not treating you well, like, boom, get out. Now, here's another story. This happened to me. Again, it's been a few years back, but I was working with a designer friend of mine. And we had been brought in by this company whose marketing director was local, but the corporate office was in another city. And they were a startup, and everything was going great. We were doing work with them month after month after month, consistent, continual, good work. Everybody seemed happy. And then all of a sudden, they just stopped paying their bills. And you're like, hello, right? 1 month goes by, they're not paying. 2 months go by, they're not paying. 3 months go by, they're not paying. Well, and of course, I'm following up. I don't know about my designer counterpart, but I'm following up, hey, I'm sure this fell off the radar, just wanted to remind you. And then second month, oh, by the way, here's your late fee, kind of thing. Finally, after the third month, I said, listen, freelance isn't free. And I sent an email to this gal, which in retrospect, I probably should have picked up the phone and called her, but I learned things, right? 23 years, stuff going on that I learned. But long story short, I got back to her and I said, listen, I cannot afford to continue working for you for free. So I'm going to have to hold off on doing the work for, this project until we get caught up to speed. Oh, she did not like that. She picked up the phone immediately and called me, and pardon the expression, but she ripped me a new one for 45 minutes straight. Y'all, she was so mad. She's yelling at me that it was so loud. I had to have the phone like way out to here because it was so loud. And she's calling me names. She's just going off. I felt like I was a teenager again. My mom was yelling at me again. I was like, what is going on? I don't deserve this. I didn't do anything to deserve this. They're the ones who are at fault. And then she did something really funny. And I could hear this right all the way out to here. And she says to me, she goes, you are being so immature and so unprofessional. Like, I'm dying laughing. Because, of course, like, let her rant, let her get it off of her chest. I'm trying not to take things personal, let it go in one ear, out the other. But as soon as she said that, I just couldn't help myself. And I pulled the phone back in and I was like, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, but you're sitting here yelling and screaming at me, and I'm the one who's immature and I'm the one who's unprofessional. And she's like, yes. I'm like, okay, carry on. I just wanted to make sure. And she goes on and on and on. I'm like, oh my gosh. But of course, I'm charging for this time. Are you kidding me? 100%. So I'm just letting her go, and I'm hearing cash register, sounds like cha-ching, cha-ching. So finally, she calms down. I bring the phone back in and she's like, all right, well, what are we going to do now? And I said, well, here's what we're going to do. Because I'm a professional, I will finish up this month's worth of work. And then at the end of the month, we're going to have to call it a day. Like, I totally fired her. I was not about to put up with somebody treating me that way, and neither should you, quite honestly. Now, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was because they were a startup and they didn't have the money, or my hunch is that she simply forgot to turn in the invoices to the accounting department in the other city, like to email them to them. Not my problem. Either way, I think that's probably what happened, and she was going to get in trouble for me not working anymore. I'll never know the answer, but man, she burned a huge bridge with me. And I'll tell you what, I had no problems being like, you know what, this was a lot of good money and a lot of good work, but at the end of the day, man, no. I will not continue to work for somebody who's abusive like that. Not going to happen. So I just, I want you all to stay professional. I want you to offer an alternative resource, maintain your sanity, and wish them well if and when the time comes. Get comfortable saying no, you all. Like, saying no means that you're confident in your abilities, that you recognize that your work has value, and that you have professional standards. It's okay to say no. It's okay to walk away. You have to give yourself permission to do so. There is plenty of work out there. You just have to find it. All right? Unfortunately, people will walk all over you if you let them. Do not let them. You have to train people how to treat you. Remember, you are not a doormat. There are going to be situations that come up that you are prepared for and many that you aren't. So think about all of the ways that you can prepare for those in advance and be proactive and know where you can turn for help if you get stuck. You never know if and when these situations will occur, so it's best to be prepared. So always have a game plan. Decide how you'll handle each if and when they do happen. Write these out so you don't forget. Go over all of these things with your clients so everybody understands what's going on here. Expectations are met. Communicate frequently. Make sure you're in touch with the client. Hopefully they'll be in touch with you just as much. Get everything in writing. Okay, 100%. Even if you have a phone conversation and you want to make sure you've got the details right, send them a quick email after that. Hey, Joe, it was so good talking to you. Just wanted to recap our conversation. Here are the things we agreed on. Did I miss anything? Or is this what you remember too? Boom, send it on. They send back, yes, you've got it in writing. Okay, you've got agreement in writing. So if you like what you're hearing here today, if you would like more tips and tricks, insights, motivation, inspiration, I want to invite you to join me on Facebook. I have a fun little group called Freelance Rockstars going on Facebook over there. We have a lot of fun. There's tons of camaraderie with like-minded folks. You get all these free tips and tricks. You get your questions answered in a safe space. You get encouragement and so much more. I would love it if you would come join me. Just get on Facebook, search for Freelance Rockstars, and click to join. I hope to see you there. Cool. Okay, so moving forward, I want you to be bold. I want you to know that you are the boss of your business, not your clients. And that means you get to dictate the rules, things like your rates, your fees, when payments are due, when you work, etc. You get to determine what policies you have for your business and what you will tolerate and what you won't. You are a business owner. That means you get to call the shots. Next, I want you to be brave. I want you to trust your gut with these things. I want you to hold your ground, stand up for any unfair treatment, and walk away from anything that does not feel right. I'll tell you one thing, the more that we bond together and stop collectively accepting this treatment, the less it will continue. So be brave and implement those policies into your business. And lastly, I want you to be badass. Remember that mindset is 100% everything when it comes to succeeding in business. You want to be prepared, be confident, and get the respect that you deserve. That, my friends, is how you will rock your business. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Please keep in touch. I would love to hear from you. You can find me at juliecortez.com. That's Cortez with an S at the end. Connect with me on social media at KC Copy Diva. And of course, join the Freelance Rockstars group to gain even more insider tips and tricks. If there's anything else I can do to help you in your freelance journey, please let me know. Thank you. Thank you so much.